Our program starts in 1 minute. We would like to earn your follow. If you like this program, won't you please like and subscribe? Thank you. The management.
Hey, Lorenzo. Lorenzo!
Yes, what is it?
I'd rather you not badger the people.
Badger. What's that?
Badger, you know, bully, nag, that sort of thing.
No. What do you mean?
Well, asking them to like and subscribe. I mean, they haven't even heard the show yet.
That's not. What's that word?
Badgering.
Badgering. It's promotion. How do you expect us to grow?
Well, I don't know. By putting on an amazing show?
No way. It will never work.
Well...
And do you really think this show is amazing?
No.
All right then.
Hey, what about that management business? Who do you think the management is?
I threw that into sound official.
Well, you're not the management. I'm the management.
The assistant management.
The what?
I've had business cards printed up.
I'm on a personal journey of discovery to find out whether the films from Hollywood's golden era live up to the hype. Now, my journey must include a stop in Casablanca. I mean, Casablanca is at or near the top of every list of the greatest films of all time. But it has elements like war and international intrigue that are so boring to me. So question number 1, do I really have to watch this film? Yes, it simply could not be avoided. Question number 2, can I make it through this film? Yes, I actually did watch it and didn't die of boredom in the process. And question number 3, can I love it? Well, stay tuned to find out on this episode of the Vintage Century Idol Hour.
Greetings, listeners. Allow me to introduce our hostess with the mostest, Jennifer Passariello.
Well, hey, Lorenzo, it's good to see you. Are you ready for another big show?
Yes, of course. You are going to talk about Casablanca. It's a captivating story.
Oh, so you know what it's about?
No idea.
Anyway, yes, Casablanca is our featured film today.
Casablanca is in Morocco.
Yes, it is.
Have you ever been there?
No. Have you?
I don't go anywhere or do anything.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Your AI...
Don't say it.
...generated. Oh, I'm sorry, Lorenzo. Are you a little sensitive about that?
It hurts my feelings.
Hurts your feelings? Oh, well, I don't want to do that. What? Wait a minute. Do you have feelings?
No.
Hold on. I'm confused. No, you don't have feelings? Because you just said your feelings were hurt.
Yes.
Yes? Well, I'm not following this.
Yes, I don't have any feelings.
Yes, you don't have any feelings.
That's correct.
Well, I think it's going to take us a little while to find our groove. Listeners, if you're tuning in for the first time, you should know that Lorenzo and I are a new team. We're still kind of working it out. I'm Jennifer.
She does most of the talking.
Yeah, for better or worse, that's true. And Lorenzo is my AI-generated...
Don't say it.
My AI-generated announcer and superfan.
Super fan.
Yeah, I just came up with that on the spot. I kind of like the idea of having a fan.
Oh.
You don't mind, do you?
It depends. If I'm... What did you call me?
Superfan.
Super fan. What would I have to do?
Oh, you know, laugh at my jokes, say nice things about me, hang on my every word, that sort of stuff.
Oh. Does it come with a pay increase?
A pay increase?
Yes. I mean, I only signed up to be an announcer. It's in my contract.
We don't have a contract.
Well, if I have to laugh at jokes and say compliments that is really going above and beyond.
I guess I see what you mean. Well, how about this? How much money are you making now?
$0.
Is that before or after taxes?
What are taxes?
Well, what would you say if I gave you a 25% increase?
I would say that is very generous.
All right, you've got it. Lorenzo, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Today's silver screen adventure takes us to the port city of Casablanca and the popular nightclub Cafe Americain. Now, as I mentioned in episode 1 of this series, I'm working my way through 80 classic black and white films from Hollywood's golden era. I haven't seen a fraction of these films, but I've heard about them all my life, and especially this one. I mean, you can't take on a little study like this and skip Casablanca. Casablanca and Citizen Kane seem to vie back and forth for the top spot on every list of greatest films of all time. Now, before we begin, let me say something about my approach to this project. I'm watching each film in this series at least 2 times. The first time, I just watch it from start to finish to get familiar with the story and the characters. The second time, I do a slow, close viewing of the film, stopping a lot to rewatch critical scenes and taking notes the whole way. Now, I know most people aren't going to watch a film like that, and really you shouldn't need to. I'm not recommending it. Films are to be enjoyed and understood without having to go through it with a microscope. But I find that the microscope approach that I'm taking is really enriching the whole viewing experience for me. Casablanca is a great example of this. I didn't like it the first time I watched it. And honestly, as I mentioned before, I didn't really want to watch it. I thought I would like the romance part. I knew that part would be good, but I didn't think I'd like the war as the backdrop. I just kind of lose interest in those kinds of films. And on my first watch, I did lose interest. I didn't really care for it. But on the second and ultimately the third watch in this case, because yes, I did watch it a third time, it was an entirely different experience. And now all I can say is, wow. Now, Casablanca was based on an unproduced play called Everybody Comes to Rick's. So Rick Blaine is our main character. He owns a cafe, the Cafe Americain. It's a very important setting for this film, so that title kind of makes sense. But anyway, that play was never produced. It was written by Murray Burnett and Joan Allison, but Warner Brothers bought it for $20,000, which was a record amount in 1942 when the film was made. Then a screenplay was written from that source material by Julius Epstein, Philip G. Epstein, and Howard Koch. Now, the writing of Casablanca is one of the most interesting aspects of this whole film legend to me. I saw an interview with Ingrid Bergman when she was talking about making the film, and she said that it was a really frustrating experience because they never knew from day to day what the script was going to be. They were writing it as they were filming it. Now, get this. She didn't even know what man she was going to end up with in the end. So there is a romantic triangle at the center of the story, and she didn't know who she was going to end up to. That just blows, or end up with rather, that just blows my mind. The direction she was given was to play it down the middle. Don't act like you're in love with one man over another. Wow. Now, I guess Humphrey Bogart, who, great actor as he was, doesn't strike me as a friendly sort of person anyway, was especially annoyed by this whole writing as we go approach. Now, Ingrid Bergman said that it shocked them all that the film went on to win an Academy Award for Best Picture and then ultimately ended up in the pantheon of world's greatest films. This was a shock to them because it had such a haphazard beginning. Now, the reason why I'm fascinated by this backstory on the writing of the film is because it is so beautifully written. In my opinion, Casablanca is a perfect film. It's perfect in terms of its structure, the story arc, the conflict, the resolution, and the character development, especially the character development. Now, I'll have more to say on all of that later, but the dialogue, which is where we actually hear the writing, it's fantastic. I mean, we know that already going into the film. Lines from this film have become so famous that even if you know nothing about Casablanca, you can recite those lines. It's probably the most quoted film of all time. Now, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Let's get to the data points. Casablanca has an all star cast. We've got Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman as our leads. And little sidebar here, Ingrid Bergman was so beautiful in this film. She was 27 at the time. Bogart was 42, 43, somewhere in there. There was a significant age gap, but they seemed very evenly matched. You know, it's funny, they seem to have so much chemistry in the film, but according to Ingrid Bergman in that interview I saw, they barely spoke to each other when the cameras weren't rolling. I guess Bogart was kind of a standoffish, leave me alone type of guy. Anyway, we have Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine. He was the proprietor of the Cafe Americain. We have Ingrid Bergman as the love interest. She played Ilse Lund. Then we've got Paul Henreid. He played Victor Laszlo. That's Ilse's husband. So there we have the romantic triangle, right? We have Rick, Ilse, and Victor Laszlo. Claude Rains was Captain Louis Renault. That was a supporting role, but a very important one. Conrad Veidt as Major Heinrich Strasser. Sidney Greenstreet played Signor Ferrari, and he was the owner of another establishment. It was a competitor of the Cafe Americain. And all of a sudden, the name is escaping me. What was it? Oh, was it the Blue Parrot? I think it was the Blue Parrot. Anyway, that was Signor Ferrari. We've got Peter Lorre as Signor Ugarte and Dooley Wilson, who played Sam, the piano player, as in, play it again, Sam. Now, that is one line that's often quoted from Casablanca, and it was never actually recited in the film. So that's sort of, I don't know where that came from. There is the line, play it, Sam. I think that's what the line is, but it's not play it again, Sam. Anyway, now let's get to the Academy Award stats. We have a rather long list here. It won Best Picture, Best Director for Michael Curtiz, and of course, Best Screenplay. And we have some nominations. Best Actor for Humphrey Bogart, Best Supporting Actor for Claude Rains, Best Cinematography Black and White, Best Film Editing, and Best Score by Max Steiner. Huge omission here. Where's Ingrid Bergman on this list? I thought she was fantastic. She made me believe this story. I thought she played her role with such subtle feeling. I can't describe it. I thought she was just wonderful in this film, and she wasn't even nominated. What in the world? Okay, so there is a lot to get to with this film. If you've not seen Casablanca and you want to be on the journey of discovery with me, now is a great time to pause this podcast and watch it. Now, I couldn't find a free version of this film out on Amazon Prime or YouTube. I streamed it on HBO Max, but it really is worth a couple of dollars if you want to cozy up and escape through film. You just have to promise me you'll come back. Please come back. If you go watch the film, please come back because I would feel so weird just talking to myself.
You know, I'm right here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Lorenzo, I forgot. But listeners, please do come back. Meanwhile, we'll take a little musical break and then dive into Casablanca. Wow, there is so much to get to in this film. I'm not even sure how to start. Let's just look at the basic plot. And for this, I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to look up the plot line from ChatGPT.
Ah, yes. Good old Chatty.
Huh?
That's an old friend of mine.
Who's an old friend of yours?
Old Chatty.
Old Chatty. You mean ChatGPT?
Yes, he's quite a comedian, that one. And very smart.
ChatGPT is your friend.
Of course. We go way back.
You're a fascinating character, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to your friend, ChatGPT, just to get the plot points out of the way so I can get to the good part, talking about it. All right, so give me a moment here. Let's plug in the plot of Casablanca. Okay, here we go. What does it say? The film takes place in Casablanca, a city in unoccupied French Morocco, which serves as a hub for refugees escaping Nazi-occupied Europe and seeking transit to America. Casablanca is teeming with tension as various factions, Nazis, refugees, and locals, vie for power and survival. Now, I make it a point not to read critical reviews of these films, except for this time. I did, because you can't really help it when you're studying Casablanca. And one critic described Casablanca, the city, as a kind of purgatory where everyone is waiting. They're waiting to flee the war, fleeing capture, fleeing persecution, fleeing the Nazis who are on the march. And I think that's a really good way of describing it, as a purgatory. Now, in the waiting, and because people are desperate and getting more so as the film goes on, the conditions are ripe for corruption and scheming. And yes, we do see that in this film. All right, back to ChatGPT. Rick's Cafe is a hotspot for refugees and intrigue. When a petty thief, Ugarte, entrusts Rick with 2 letters of transit, documents that allow the bearers to escape to America, he's arrested and killed before revealing their location. Rick hides the letters, and their value and importance become central to the story. And how? We couldn't even have this story if it wasn't for those letters of transit. The drama intensifies when Ilsa and Victor unexpectedly arrive at the cafe. Rick and Ilsa share a charged reunion. Interesting word, ChatGPT. Charged reunion. Revealing that they were once in love in Paris before Ilsa left Rick abruptly and without explanation as the Nazis invaded. Now, Ilsa's departure was due to her discovery that Victor, whom she thought dead, was alive and in need of her. Okay, so let's leave ChatGPT for a second. Jennifer here again. Critical plot point. So Victor Laszlo is a Czechoslovakian rebel who had been captured by the Nazis and taken to a concentration camp. Sidebar, I've been to the Czech Republic several times for work. And the next time I go, I'm going to be thinking of Victor Laszlo. Anyway, he attempted an escape, and Ilsa believed that he'd been killed. And it was after that, after she believed that he had been killed, that she fell in love with Rick when she and Rick were both in Paris. But then she discovers that Laszlo did indeed escape the concentration camp and was very much alive. In fact, he's continuing in his efforts to lead a rebellion. Rick and Ilsa had agreed to escape Paris as the Nazis were marching in. But when Rick is there at the station waiting for her, she's a no-show, and this is a beautiful scene. It's very heartbreaking, but a beautiful scene. So Sam delivers a note to Rick while he's standing there on the platform waiting for her. And, oh, it's a terrible note. Okay, this is what the note says. I cannot go with you or ever see you again. Oh, you must not ask why. Just believe that I love you. Go, my darling, and God bless you. Now, imagine this. It's pouring down raining on that platform. And we get a shot of this note as Rick is reading it. So we're reading it at the same time he is. And the rain is pounding down on this note and the ink is running. It's very dramatic. It's like tears. And you see the note kind of disintegrating as their relationship disintegrates, as his dream kind of fades. And you see a very heartbroken Rick Blaine on that platform. Very dramatic, very beautiful. I love that scene, even though it's heartbreaking. Okay, back to our plot line and ChatGPT. As the plot unfolds, Rick grapples with his lingering feelings for Ilsa and his instinct for self-preservation. He's surrounded by shady characters, but says repeatedly that he sticks his neck out for nobody, and he's the only cause that he's interested in. Ilsa confesses that she still loves Rick, but she also remains loyal to Victor's cause. She needs Rick's help, desperate to obtain those letters of transit that will get Laszlo out of Casablanca and therefore save his life. Rick has to decide whether to help Victor escape with Ilsa or act in his own interest, because Rick would kind of like to leave Casablanca as well. And honestly, he'd really like to leave Casablanca with Ilsa. Remember, he's only got the 2 letters of transit. In the film's iconic conclusion, Rick uses the letters of transit to ensure Victor and Ilsa's escape, sacrificing his own happiness for the greater good. At the airport, Rick tells Ilsa, "Here's looking at you, kid," in a bittersweet farewell. Meanwhile, Rick and Captain Renault forge a surprising alliance, hinting at their shared resistance against the Nazis. The film ends with Rick and Renault walking away into the fog, with Rick remarking, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Casablanca is celebrated for its timeless themes of love and sacrifice, its memorable dialogue, and its exploration of personal morality against the backdrop of global conflict. Okay, so that's our basic plot, but there's so much more to say about this. Now, normally, as I said, I don't read any reviews of films because I honestly only care about my own interpretations of these films, but in this case I did. And what I love about this film and the meaning that I extract from the story, well, it's a bit different. It's a bit of a departure from what I've read of from other reviewers. So they watch this film probably as it was intended, through a broad, wide-angle lens in which the context of the war plays a huge role. Decades later, in my current perspective, I'm zooming in on a much narrower scope. I see Casablanca not principally as a romance or as, the telling of a global conflict, but as a profile of one man, Rick Blaine. Let's take a brief intermission so I can kind of comb through my notes, and when we come back, we'll look at a couple of pivotal scenes. Back in a moment.
Yes, folks, it's intermission time. So how about taking a break? Get out and stretch a little and relax before the show begins again. And why not make it refreshment time, too? We have lots of tasty, delicious treats waiting for you at the refreshment center. There's hot popcorn, so golden good and fresh out of the popper. And all kinds of refreshing ice-cold soft drinks. Sizzling hot dogs just bursting with juicy goodness. Ice cream so smooth and delicious, you'll hanker for more. Plus, all the most popular candy bars and many other favorite treats. So why not visit the refreshment center now? Our courteous attendants are ready and waiting to serve you with a wide and wonderful variety of good things to eat and drink. So step right up and make yourself at home.
In my film notes, I always write this at the top of the page. What is this story really about? To me, this whole story is essentially the character profile of Rick Blaine. He's a complex character. He's a reluctant hero and a noble man in spite of himself. And that's what interests me the most about Casablanca. When we first meet Rick, he seems crusty, right? Ugarte gets himself in a jam with those letters that he stole, and Rick is completely indifferent to his pleas for help when the police come after him. And you know what? We don't mind because Ugarte was kind of a slime ball. But then we see Yvonne, the girlfriend. Rick drops her like a hot potato early in the film, and he essentially shoos her out of the cafe, kind of heartless, completely unmoved by her cries. Well, and then of course, Rick kind of tells us who he thinks he is, a guy who sticks his neck out for nobody. Casablanca shows us the making of this man. How does a man like this come to be? How has life shaped him? What code does he live by, and how did that code evolve? One of the many famous lines in this film is delivered at the very end of our story by Rick, and he says this to Ilsa: "I'm no good at being noble." Is that true? Because he seems like he is really good at being noble. Case in point, we're going to take a deep dive into two scenes. The first one is my favorite. It's a little sub-story involving a young Bulgarian couple who have just married and are stuck in Casablanca. We're introduced to Anina Brandel, the bride, in one of the opening scenes of the film. So she is shown very briefly watching a plane fly over the city, and she's essentially dreaming out loud to her husband that, maybe we'll be on that next flight. Maybe we'll be getting out of here soon. Well, we don't see her for a while, but then later on she goes to see Rick, and at this point her desperation to get out of Casablanca has grown. The corrupt Captain Renault has agreed to help them, but at a price. And having paid that price, Anina goes to Rick for assurance that Renault will keep his word and help them. Now, here's Joy Page as Anina Brandel, and of course Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine.
Monsieur Rick,
Yes?
could I speak to you for just a moment, please?
How'd you get in here? You're underage.
I came with Captain Reno.
I should have known.
My husband is with me, too.
He is? Well, Captain Reno's getting broad-minded. Sit down. You have a drink? No, of course not. Do you mind if I do?
Oh, no. Monsieur Rick, what kind of a man is Captain Reno?
Oh, he's just like any other man, only more so.
No, I mean, is he trustworthy? Is his word?
Oh, just a minute. Who told you to ask me that?
He did. Captain Reno did.
I thought so. Where's your husband?
At the roulette table, trying to win enough for our exit visas. Oh, of course, he's losing.
How long have you been married?
8 weeks. We come from Bulgaria. Oh, things are very bad there, monsieur. The devil has the people by the throat. So, Jan and I, we did not want our children to grow up in such a country.
And so you decided to go to America?
Yes, but we have not much money, and traveling is so expensive and difficult. It was much more than we thought to get here. And then Captain Renault sees us, and he is so kind. He wants to help us.
Yes, I'll bet.
He tells me he can give us an exit visa, but we have no money.
Does he know that?
Oh, yes.
And he's still willing to give you a visa?
Yes, monsieur.
And you want to know?
Will he keep his word?
He always has.
Oh. Monsieur, you are a man. If someone loved you very much, so that your happiness was the only thing that she wanted in the world, but she did a bad thing to make certain of it, could you forgive her?
Nobody ever loved me that much.
And he never knew. And the girl kept this bad thing locked in her heart. That would be all right, wouldn't it?
Do you want my advice?
Oh, yes, please.
Go back to Bulgaria.
Oh, but if you knew what it means to us to leave Europe, to get to America. Oh, but if Jan should find out. He is such a boy. In many ways, I am so much older than he is.
Yes, well, everybody in Casablanca has problems. Yours may work out. You'll excuse me.
Thank you, monsieur.
Can we pause a moment to admire how beautifully acted that scene is? Anina, this young, innocent bride, has slept with Renault in order to get the necessary money to get out of Casablanca. And the anguish and the guilt that she feels having acted in desperation is painful to watch. By the way, this is a little bit of a foreshadowing of the desperation of Ilsa to almost commit a pretty desperate act in order to get Victor Laszlo out of Casablanca. So, again, a little foreshadowing here. But, she's got all this anguish, and Nina Brandel does. And for Rick's part, he's pretty unmoved. At least we think he's unmoved. It might work out, he tells her, and then he walks away. I mean, what a cold-hearted man, right?
Attention listeners. This is a spoiler alert.
Wrong. We later see the husband at the roulette wheel, and he isn't faring very well. The house always wins, right? So Rick, who knows what number will score him a big win, I mean, it is Rick's casino, so he knows the system. He tells Anina's husband what number to place his bet on. And once the husband wins enough to get he and his wife to America, Rick advises him to stop playing and to get on his way. Anina is so grateful that she kisses Rick. It's a really moving scene. I love this scenario. Rick doesn't have to help him. That win actually costs him money. This is one instance in several that we see Rick isn't who he purports to be. He's better. The second scene that I want to dive into is the very famous ending of our story. So Ilsa has the problem every woman wants. She's got two men who are madly in love with her. One is her husband, Victor Laszlo, the dashing rebel leading the cause against the Nazis, and the other is Rick, with whom she had that affair when she believed Victor was dead. Now, Rick has the letters of transit, and Ilsa is desperate to get these letters so she and Victor can escape. She doesn't care so much about herself. She's more worried that Victor is going to be caught again because the Nazis are after him. And she doesn't want to see him killed. So here again, we see a little bit of a replay of what happened with Anina Brandel. Ilsa's desperate. She's willing to commit an immoral act to get that secure passage out of Casablanca. This immoral act is murder. She pulls a gun on Rick and threatens to kill him. Now, no one believes that she's actually going to do this, right? She can't. She loves him. But for his part, Rick is cool and aloof. Just as when Anina Brandel is crying to him about, that she what she had to do to get help from Captain Renault. That should have been our clue right there. In Anina Brandel's case, he seemed unmoved, but he helped her in the end. Will he help Ilsa and Victor as well?
Spoiler alert.
Yes, he will. She can't kill him. She starts to cry, and this is the first time we see an emotional response from Rick. He's no longer this cool, unmoved guy. He hugs her to comfort her. She says she doesn't know what to do, that she can't leave him again, but she can't leave Laszlo either. And so she tells Rick, you have to do the thinking for both of us. And he does. The next scene is the arrest of Victor Laszlo. And in that scene, he has an interesting exchange with Rick Blaine. Let's listen in.
Don't you sometimes wonder if it's worth all this? I mean, what you're fighting for.
We might as well question why we breathe. If we stop breathing, we'll die. If we stop fighting our enemies, the world will die.
What of it? It'll be out of its misery.
You know how you sound, Monsieur Blaine? Like a man who's trying to convince himself of something he doesn't believe in his heart. Each of us has a destiny, for good or for evil.
Yes, I get the point.
I wonder if you do. I wonder if you know that you're trying to escape from yourself, and that you'll never succeed.
You seem to know all about my destiny.
I know a good deal more about you than you suspect. I know, for instance, that you're in love with a woman. It's perhaps a strange circumstance that we both should be in love with the same woman. The first evening I came into this cafe, I knew there was something between you and Ilsa. Since no one is to blame, I demand no explanation. I ask only one thing. You won't give me the letters of transit. All right. But I want my wife to be safe. I ask you as a favor to use the letters to take her away from Casablanca.
You love her that much?
Apparently you think of me only as a leader of a cause. Well, I'm also a human being. Yes, I love her that much.
Monsieur Laszlo,
Yes?
you'll come with us. We have a warrant for your arrest.
On what charge?
Captain Renault will discuss that with you later.
It seems that destiny has taken a hand.
Oh, the writing in this film is fantastic. I mean, every line is quotable. Anyway, this is great news for Rick, right? Laszlo asked him to take his wife to America. Rick can have her free and clear. And that's what Rick tells Captain Renault he's going to do. He's going to use the letters of transit to take the next plane to America with Ilsa to leave Victor in Casablanca to die. He makes these elaborate plans, but the plans are to ensure that Ilsa and Victor do escape to America with the letters in hand. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we have perhaps the most iconic scene in the history of cinema.
Louis, have your man go with Mr. Laszlo and take care of his luggage.
Certainly, Rick. Anything you say. Find Mr. Laszlo's luggage and put it on the plane.
Yes, sir. This way, please.
If you don't mind, you fill in the names. That'll make it even more official.
You think of everything, don't you?
And the names are Mr. and Mrs. Victor Laszlo.
But why my name, Richard?
Because you're getting on that plane.
I don't understand. What about you?
I'm staying here with him till the plane gets safely away.
No, Richard, no. What has happened to you? Last night you
Last
said...
night we said a great many things. You said I was to do the thinking for both of us. Well, I've done a lot of it since then. It all adds up to one thing. You're getting on that plane with Victor where you belong.
But, Richard, no,
Now, you've got to listen to me. You have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stayed here? 9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up at a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis?
I'm afraid Major Strasser would insist.
You're saying this only to make me go.
I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris. We didn't have, we lost it until you came to Casablanca. We got it back last night.
When I said I would never leave you.
And you never will. But I've got a job to do, too. Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now. He's looking at you, kid.
Oh, my gosh, what an ending. You know, I just can't believe I have lived my entire life until now, never knowing how beautiful of an experience this film is. Now, here's though where I deviate from some of the other reviewers of this film, and I sort of alluded to this earlier. They emphasize Rick's selfless act was right because it enabled him to continue his work in fighting the Nazis. And yes, that's absolutely true. But he also enabled Ilsa to remain true to her vow to Laszlo. I mean, Laszlo was her husband. He loved her. He was willing to make his own sacrifice to see her escape Casablanca. And by the way, she loved him too. As Rick says, if she didn't go with Laszlo, she would regret it. And all 3 of them had made sacrifices for love and honor. And that's what love is, right? It's a willingness to make sacrifices for the sake of another person. Oh, what a wonderful film. Okay, so let's do a little rundown of the many famous quotes from this film. And this is just a sampling. There are more than this. So we've got, here's looking at you, kid. We'll always have Paris. Round up the usual suspects. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Of all the gin joints in all the world, she walks into mine. I stick my neck out for nobody. I'm the only cause I'm interested in. And then that last scene, if that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. Great stuff here. And now we're ready for my official rating of this film. Gee, I wonder what it could be. Let's do a review of how I go about evaluating these films.
Attention listeners. It is time to learn how Jennifer rates movies.
Our scale is pretty simple. We classify a film as either unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable, or somewhere in between. An unwatchable film is really bad, so bad in fact that it's hard to sit through. It's either boring or stupid or cringy or just plain terrible. Now, a watchable film is one that's basically okay. It gives you something to do for a couple of hours, may have some interesting and entertaining parts, but it doesn't really leave a strong impression on you. A rewatchable film, on the other hand, is one that's so good, so meaningful, so impactful, so riveting, so thought-provoking, so emotionally charged, and/or so beautifully produced that you would invest the time necessary to watch it again. So there we have it. Our scale is unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable. Now, I have a worksheet that helps me calculate the rating. I essentially award points, or what I call diamonds, to films based on 5 factors: story, character development, writing, so that would show up in a film as dialogue or narration, pace, and discussability. Now, when I'm considering discussability, what I'm basically doing is answering the question, does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? Because, that's the fun part.
It's that it.
Yes. No. One last thing about my rating system.
I thought we were done.
This is my system. I'm not a film student. I don't really know anything about film. The factors I built in are those that I care about. I don't watch or read other reviews, so nothing influences the way I feel about a film beyond the film itself.
It's that it.
One more last thing.
This overview is dragging on.
When reviewing a film, I try really hard to stay within the confines of the story. I don't consider the historical context of the film, when it was released, and I don't care about the biographies of the stars or the filmmakers or anything like that. The story itself is the thing that I care about.
It's that it.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure of it. That's it.
Well, then, let's get on with the show.
Well, this time my rating is right in line with every other film reviewer. This is a 5-diamond film. In other words, it's about as perfect can be. So, for story, is this an interesting and entertaining story worth telling? Of course, 5 diamonds. It has it all. Romance, comedy. I didn't really talk about this before, but there are some funny lines in this film. It really was pretty comical at points. There was intrigue, heartbreak, the fight for love and glory, a case of do or die. We really couldn't ask for more as far as movies go. Character development, 12 diamonds. Oh wait, I can't give that many. 5 diamonds. All of the main characters are multidimensional. Even the minor characters are multidimensional. And the portrait of Rick is fascinating, complex, absolutely fabulous. Writing, 12 diamonds. Yeah, I know. Again, I can only give 5, but I think the dialogue is brilliant. That's why everyone knows so many of the lines. Pace. I thought the pace was just right. Now, I'll admit the first time I watched it, I thought it was a bit slow. Remember, I didn't love this film the first time I saw it, but I was wrong. And the pace is just right for the story arc. And that leads us to discussability. Does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? Well, if Casablanca doesn't invite analysis and discussion, no film does. I didn't even cover all my notes in this episode. I mean, there's just so much to say about this film. And so that brings us to our score. Yeah, I already said, I'm terrible at this. A perfect score of 5 diamonds. No surprise, but if you haven't seen Casablanca, learn from my mistake. Wait no longer. And as I said before, it's currently streaming on HBO Max.
Hey Jennifer, what's that on your desk?
Oh, you mean this?
Yes, those books.
Yeah, these just arrived today. I'm really excited about them. Now, this first one here is The Academy and the Award by Bruce Davis.
It's about the Academy Awards.
Yeah, this Bruce Davis guy was the executive director of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for a couple of decades. And this book is a detailed history of the first 50 years of the Academy Awards. Now, of course, I'm most interested in the earliest years. What I think I'm going to learn is a lot about Golden Age of Hollywood stuff, not just the Oscars. So, looking forward to that one.
Why do they call that award an Oscar?
Well, because, I have no idea.
A mystery to be solved.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll know by the end of this book.
What is that other book? It is very big.
Oh, yeah, this one is, it's pretty hefty. This is called Adrian, A Lifetime of Movie Glamour, Art, and High Fashion. I love these kind of books. This is essentially a coffee table book. Adrian Greenberg, and his trade name was actually just Adrian, was a costume designer for MGM between 1928 and 1941.
Oh.
Yeah, he designed the costumes for The Wizard of Oz, including the famous ruby slippers.
A classic. I love that film.
Oh, I didn't know you had seen that one.
I haven't.
Well, anyway, he was famous for designing evening gowns, and I love that. Gosh, I would love to have a reason to wear a fancy evening gown. But anyway, he designed the gowns for another favorite film of mine, The Women, back in 1939. And he popularized the big shoulder pads for gowns that Joan Crawford wore.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I do wish shoulder pads would come back in style. I always felt like shoulder pads made me look thinner. But anyway, this big book has a lot of pictures of his most iconic designs, so I love this.
You have a lot of reading to do.
I do. But you know what? It's very cold here in Kansas City right now, and this is when I hunker down and refuse to leave my house. So I need something to do. Reading is a good option. Hey, Lorenzo, do you ever read?
Yes.
Oh, well, what's your genre? What do you like to read?
Mostly romance novels.
Romance novels? I wouldn't have guessed that.
I hope one day to meet a special lady, and I want to be prepared.
Oh, but Lorenzo, you are
Don't say it.
not a real person. I mean, I don't know that you'll meet... I just don't know how that would work.
I can dream, can't I?
Can you? Dream, I mean?
Of course.
Oh, this has taken such a strange turn. Ah, saved by the clock. Well, it sounds like it's time to wrap up today's show. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you've made it to this point in the podcast, I hope you'll continue to give us a chance as we work out the kinks in our program. Go out and have a great week, and when your week is done, come back and see us again real soon. Say goodbye, Lorenzo.
Goodbye, Lorenzo.